Is.
Yes. I wonder if it would be useful to have a question to start things off with. Or do you think starting from sort of silences?
No, I think a question could probably help. A question or an idea, because we do tend to stray off into other directions anyway.
Totally.
So I don't think if we started with an idea or a question, we'd just be limited to that. We'd probably find our way into other things anyway.
It just feels like such a... Well, it's not how you start a conversation anyway. Like, are you ready? Okay, let's have a conversation.
Yeah, no.
And it feels like there's pressure to say something intelligent.
It does.
I wonder if... What are you reading? What do you read?
Yeah, and because we're reading the same things for maybe like a month or a couple of months at a time, we could keep coming back to that question, but it doesn't have to be the only question we start with.
Yeah.
But like once we've changed something up in what we're reading.
Or something you've read.
Yeah.
Something that you found interesting.
Yeah. But I think revisiting the question of what you're reading now is a good one to go to.
Yeah. Or but maybe you could just like follow the book for a few months for the time that you're reading it. Like, what have you read in it?
True.
But then it becomes quite specifically about those books. I actually found out more shit about Ayn Rand.
Oh yeah.
Ayn, they call her in America.
Oh.
And I was relatively close with what I could dredge up. She came to the States when she was like 20.
Oh, right. From?
Teenager from Russia.
Ah.
And her name's like Eleanor Bloomberg or something like that.
No, really?
Yeah.
So she created Ayn Rand.
Yeah. She moved to Hollywood.
Oh, right. She wanted to be right in the thick of it.
Yeah. She, her family knew that she was going to not do well under Lenin. Because she was like, I don't know, I guess it was implied that she was too much of a thinker.
Oh, right. So even from a young age, it was like, we need to get her out of here.
Yeah. And they like they got her out to the States when she was a young woman or old. Yeah, young woman, I guess. And she just moved to the States. So she had lived under communism. And all this writing, apparently... Oh, what the hell was her first book called? It's like autobiographical about living in Russia under communism as a young woman and stuff like that. Which makes a lot more sense. But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, she like wrote screenplays and was an extra in a Cecil B. DeMille movie. And
No, right.
yeah, it's funny. And then she wrote all these novels and then got super into her philosophy. She became a philosopher through writing philosophical books.
I know she had her own like followers and her own like group of groupies basically, but did people actively hate her as well?
That's a good question. Time? I'm not sure. I imagine.
Because people do now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It'd be interesting to know. Or whether she was really playing into
something.
In
the Vietnam 60s, I feel like people were pretty pro-communist in some ways. It's like...
And she is very anti.
Yeah. Pro-capitalist.
Yeah.
I don't imagine she's ever been popular in universities. And it's funny because I was thinking about her, like, for me, she's unpopular. But had we grown up if our parents had been, like, in, finances, the financial industry, and we'd done business or economics at school, I don't imagine I'd have the same preconceptions about her. It's just because I've gone through the humanities, where it's like George Orwell's our hero, and except he shits on communism too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he like was the plight of the working man.
Yeah, but I don't know. To some extent, yeah, maybe. But then also, even on those business students and bankers or whatever to a big degree, if they're in our generation, like the prevailing attitude of the generation is to the left, or towards a kind of, I feel like capitalism in general, even in like those sort of business, I don't know what I'm saying, but I feel like if you were a student, even if you were a business student, I don't know if you'd be into what Ayn Rand was saying. Like, I think the ethics we've grown up with, even if the politics we've grown up with haven't been left.
Yeah.
I feel like the ethics we've grown up with
it's
have
been cool
quite...
to be left. Sure.
Yeah, and just that thing of what you were saying about not being selfish. Yeah. That's a huge one. Yeah. And even I think if people were brought up in a more conservative family or social society, we do still have that very like strong feeling of you can't be selfish.
You'll hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if you went to Eton, they'd just be like, be selfish, motherfucker.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I think you're right. I think the ethos of the day is like share. Shit like that.
Diversify.
Yeah, diversity is a good thing. Equality and treat everybody equally. And yeah. Well, let's just be fucking thankful we don't live in the 1800s. I'm reading David Copperfield at the moment by Charles Dickens, and it's meant to be, I think we were talking about it, how it's meant to be autobiographical, although it's still obviously a novel. Yeah. And it is rough. Like, if David Copperfield is a sort of young Dickens, he had a fucked up childhood. Really?
Yeah. It's really sad. Really, really sad. And not like huge deprivation and huge poverty, but like...
Didn't he work in a workhouse?
I don't know. I really don't know, you know. I don't know very much about Charles Dickens' life at all, apart from people have told me that he was an ass to his wife and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which is, you know, not good. But in a way, I can sort of see why he might have become a skewed up adult. Because...
What happened?
So the bit, I mean, I haven't read much, but where I'm up to at the moment. So Davy is born to a single mother. His dad dies before he's born. And she is quite a fragile, unconfident person, very young, and doesn't really know what she's doing. And she brings David up quite well, along with their house servant, who's like also a mother to him. Until one day his mother meets this man called Mr. Murdstone. And he is basically a psychological abuser. And he persuades the mother, who is quite weak-willed and quite, naive, persuades her that she's not firm enough with him. She's bringing him up wrong. She's living her life wrong, and he's quite an enigmatic, charismatic person. And the mother just falls under his spell. And they end up getting married, and he brings his sister to live with them, who's the same. It's all about firmness, and they're very firm, and they believe that, you can't do anything in life unless you're firm with people, with yourself. So they sort of fall into this very austere, strict, structured way of living, and Davy is just tyrannized, basically, and isolated from his mother. They start separating, and they keep punishing the mother for being affectionate towards Davy and saying like that's no way to parent a child. It's really sad, because his mother and him have this real tight bond in the beginning. They grow up just really tight and very affectionate, and they hate being parted from one another. So this is like the ultimate trauma, really. I've just read this bit where he has to do these lessons in the evening in front of all three adults, and because he's so scared, he always forgets his lessons. And I've just read the bit where Murdstone has a cane for this lesson, and like takes Davy off after the lesson to go. It's like the first time he gets caned. Yeah, it's really, really awful. And it's like, it's awful to read, but there's also like such brilliant bits of describing memory and describing childhood, and like there's this sort of overarching narrative of this trauma he's experiencing, but then there'll just be like descriptions of a specific little corner in his room that he remembers and why he remembers it and the intricacies of it. And I've just read a really beautiful section about how reading becomes Davy's solace, like his way to get away from the Murdstones. When he's locked in his room, there's this little secret room that belonged to his dad that joins onto his, and it's a tiny room, and it's just got his collection of books in it. And there's like Robinson Crusoe such a beautiful quote where he was like, how well I remember those summer evenings with the boys playing in the churchyard and me lying on my bed reading as if for life.
Nice.
Yeah. And I mean, this is the very beginning, so I'm interested to see how it develops, but even that was like, it's such a good description of the way books become a alternative reality for that child who doesn't know how to be in the painful reality of his home.
Yeah.
You know, he describes how for days at times he'd just be Robinson Crusoe, and that made everything bearable because he wasn't really there. He was Robinson, and he described how, you know, Robinson was never afraid of Murdstone and never cried at his lessons. Davy did, but Robinson was was strong and didn't care.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Can you remember the first book that you read that had a real effect in some way? Like,
it's not a book. I remember having the same relationship with James Bond.
oh yeah.
I was always thinking like I could do this as James Bond. Some of the classics, because I had like children's versions of classics where it was a picture on one page and text on the other, and it was like abridged and simplified.
Okay.
And I remember Journey to the Center of the Earth I really enjoyed. Yeah. I don't know if I remember really liking Tintin.
Okay.
Because he was just like this boy with a gun normally, and that's all I wanted to be.
A boy with a gun.
Yeah, but he was like brave, and he always ran towards the fight.
Yeah.
And he was a journalist, like he's a reporter.
Yeah.
So he was always trying to find out the story.
Yeah.
And I remember really liking that about him. And he had Snowy and
his little dog.
Like, buddy, yeah.
Because I never really read Tintin. My brothers did, but yeah.
I read Tintin and my brother read Asterix.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I really liked Tintin. And I imagine that was influential when I was pretending to be a boy with a gun. But I don't think I was ever being Tintin, because he's also kind of lame.
Yeah.
Like he tucks his shirt in and he wears like jodhpurs and shit, or like capris. And I think even then I knew he was a little lame.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll take the character.
Did you ever think about and take the journalist element of, like, when you were
I don't
young?
think I
did you
really
think
knew
that?
what that was.
No, okay.
But I think it was always something I wanted to be, I think. Because I wanted to be a spy, and I wanted to be Tintin, and I wanted to be a wildlife photographer. I remember, who just like drove around in a Jeep. I imagine I watched Planet Earth or some shit, or the equivalent.
Yeah.
Oh, I got super into Jurassic Park, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was about 7 or 8.
The books?
Yeah. I just read the first one, and it was one of the first adult books I read. And the science I just skipped through.
Did you read the book before you saw the film?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see the movie till I was like a teenager, I don't think. But I really like the idea of being like an adventurer. That's what I wanted. I used to draw pictures of like my pack and its contents and what I would take into the jungle. And yeah, Journey to the Center of the Earth, I remember, was badass. I remember, I don't know what it was now, but I had an adventure book which was like, it was like a picture book with text, and each picture was a scene, and you had to figure out the puzzle for them to fit. Like, there were puzzles on each page, and you had to find the treasure.
Yeah.
So it was like choose your own adventure, but it wasn't like turn to page 83 if you want to go through the door. Yeah. I didn't like those for some reason.
Okay.
They're too contrived.
Choose your own adventure books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we had them in the UK. I've heard about them, but I don't.
It's just like a normal book, but it's like, you get to a door. Do you want to go through it?
Yeah.
Turn to page 8.
I don't ever remember seeing those. No. But that's cool. That thing about the adventure.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I know that Joe Campbell and Jordan Peterson both talk a lot about that, right?
Yeah.
And any person who's talking about archetypes and narratives, that thing of the hero deciding to take the adventure.
Yeah.
Because for me, it was always Famous Five.
Oh,
when I was really young. And I don't even know, I think I did read some of them, but I had lots of them on audiobook.
Yeah.
I had lots of
I wasn't
tapes.
thinking of audiobooks, but I used to listen to them.
Yeah. And I loved that. Like, it was just a period of my life, and I don't think it lasted very long, because I think at some point I decided they were lame too.
Yeah.
But the thing, like, they'd always go and find gold.
Yeah.
I had one where they went and they found ingots, gold ingots.
Nice.
Like, and I still remember the description of these, like, they looked like chocolate bars, but they were solid gold.
Nice.
And I think it was that they'd gone off into a cave. I remember there being a cave. There was always ginger beer. So it was that nice balance between familiarity and like domestic.
They take their sandwiches and ginger beer
and their dog.
Yeah, and then they go on a. There's like smugglers and.
Yeah, exactly.
Bandits. Yeah.
Yeah.
She was so good at that familiarity.
So good.
And like,
so it always felt safe, even though you knew they were doing pretty dangerous stuff and mixing up in adult things.
Yeah.
It always felt safe.
Yeah.
Or you always knew it was going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I think there is something about having a dog with you.
Yeah, hey.
I don't know. I just thought about that when you were talking about Tintin. I wonder if that also is a sign of, like, you know, it's this kind of innocent but brave, royal creature.
Yeah. It'll be brave even when you're not.
Yeah.
And it'll get you out of the worst scrapes.
Yeah.
Because it'll confront the animal, whereas you'll be scared of it. So, like, I remember in Tintin, a gorilla is chasing him at one point, and the dog gets involved. And the dog normally gets beaten up.
Oh, right.
But saves the hero from death.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is a stretch, but I wonder if it's like, that is still part of us.
Yeah.
That dog represents some part of us that when our conscious ego self is scared and runs away, there is some part of us that's still like...
The amygdala will always get us through. It's like the base part of your brain, I think. I'm probably getting it wrong, but there's like the animal part of your brain, which is like hunger and fight or flight and shit like that, and it takes over.
Yeah.
And that'll always pull you through.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think they are all characteristics within you. There's the adventure, which is your life, and then there's all the characters in the story, which are characteristics within you, I think. So, like, well, it works on different levels because they are also embody different people and personalities in the world. It's like, oh, that person is like that character, and like, this is a coward in the story, therefore I know what cowards look like in the real world.
Yeah.
But I think on a deeper level, it's like the hero, the villain, the sidekick, the fairy godmother, the animal, and the love interest, and they're all representative of characteristics within yourself.
Yeah.
Which makes it so confusing, or not confusing, but well, then I get caught up on this idea of like every movie we've seen up till now has been like a man going through an adventure to rescue a damsel in distress. And now we're seeing that being torn down where it's like only women in movies, or like Frozen, which is a retake on that, in Moana, which doesn't have a man or a love story at all. And I wonder if that's a good idea. Like, I know we can't just have a white man saving a white woman and like with a hunchback as a sidekick who never gets any. But the archetypal characteristics they are embodying, masculine and feminine, if we assume the white man in the, or not even white, I shouldn't be saying white, but if we assume the man in the story is representative of men in the world, we're just going to get rid of that because it's like, well, men have had their time. We just need a woman on top. But it's like,
I think it's very, very difficult for people to accept there's a difference or perceive a difference between man, woman, masculine, feminine.
Ooh. So if you had like more like if you had a female, I guess Moana is a masculine
she has a
character. She just kicks ass. She beats up the demigod. And she's not the damsel in distress, that's for sure. And she's also not the love interest.
Yeah. But it's hard because as soon as you say that, people will, it's like this feeling of, oh, well, you're saying that in order to be heroes and brave and good, you've got to be more like a man.
Yeah.
But that's not what...
You've got it.
That's not what it means. You know, masculine and feminine are two kinds of traits.
Yeah.
And we all have them.
Yeah.
We have both of them.
Yeah.
And they are good and powerful and useful in different ways.
Yeah.
Because you've also got to have in you the wise old woman.
Yeah.
Who knows the secret spell
yeah.
that'll unlock whatever. And you've also got to have the lover.
Yeah.
You know?
And the villain.
Yeah. Because as well as like those traits, masculine and feminine, what was I listening to? I was listening to some podcast recently. Oh, I think it was on the Embodied podcast. Mark Walsh was talking to a guy who was all about... He was training men into being... I think it was like warrior training or something, like modern warrior kind of thing. And he was talking about these 5 traits that we all have. And I can't... Maybe you'll know what they are. King or queen if you're a woman. Warrior. King, warrior, lover, magician. What was the 5th one?
Not fool.
It might be fool.
Or joker.
Not sure. But they were talking about those, like... Yeah, I don't know. I don't think villain was one of them.
I guess anyone could be.
Yeah. But they were talking about those 5. as if those were like well-known, established, like archetypes and traits in people, in women and in men. And I'd not heard that before.
No. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And it kind of fits in with the hero.
Yeah. And I think the king or queen one encompasses like the leader, but also the mother or father element of you. So that like parental.
Yeah. Ancestor.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. And the warrior is the hero.
Yeah, the warrior is the hero, the fighter, the person who will put themselves first almost.
Yeah.
And take on things of the world. The lover is the vulnerability and the ability to open oneself up to the world as well. Can't remember what they were saying about the magician. I have to think about that.
Magician, the one that gives you the tools you need.
Yeah, like the innate wisdom, maybe. The sort of unconscious wisdom.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you were talking about, is it what are we trying to do when we're changing these stories? But I mean, there are a lot of old stories which involve women also going to, these dark places and going on these adventures, like The Princess and the Frog.
Yeah. Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast, yeah. A lot of the Greek myths.
Yeah.
Very often. Persephone. Pandora.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But they all involve an interplay between those masculine, feminine elements. And if one of them becomes too dominant, it has an effect. But I know what you mean, and I do think that there is. I think I was telling you about the book that I'd seen in bookshop recently about where it was just changing all of the fairy tales so that it was like in the end she ended up being, basically they all ended up with the princess protagonist becoming like a social justice warrior and fighting injustice in the fairy land and becoming a cop or there was the Little Mermaid who married another mermaid and then they opened up a cafe or something and I'm like we don't need to do that.
No,
I don't
it's
think.
too simplistic.
Yeah.
It's taken them on face value. I think we just need some badass women heroes, I think. And like Moana keeps coming to mind. She's just badass. But I wonder if she keeps coming to mind because it's like she's the only one. And I'm sure I'm wrong there, but
yeah.
Who was that girl spy? I remember reading a little bit of those books. It was a girl spy, teenage girl.
I don't know, but I mean, well, this is complicated as well. But in Famous Five, obviously, it was George who was a girl, who was
wanted to be a boy.
Yeah, who wanted to be a boy, but she was the bravest.
Yeah.
And she was always the one to start the adventure.
Huh.
And I think I did read a lot of books that were female heroes. Little House on the Prairie was one that I loved, but that was very traditional family structure. But the protagonist was a girl.
Yeah.
It was Laura who was watching everything and telling everything. And Charlotte's Web.
Oh yeah.
Heidi is one that I've not read.
What the hell is that?
I've not read Heidi, but that is meant to be. I've heard people talk about that like as if it changed their lives when they were young. Yeah. And I think, that's a story of a young girl in quite difficult family circumstances growing up to you know, be the hero of her own story, as is Pippi Longstockings.
Huh.
And people like laugh at Pippi Longstockings because she's kind of caricature now, but
Yeah.
you know, she was not an orphan because she had a dad who lived overseas, but she was badass as well. She got herself into loads of trouble.
Yeah.
But didn't really care.
Yeah.
Had a monkey.
Yeah. It's like the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, but a while ago. And I would be interested to talk it through again because I'm not sure what I think about it, but I think I was saying, like, women can be interested in female characters and male characters because women are more interested in people in general. Whereas I wonder if it's harder for men to be interested in strong female characters. So everybody reads stories where it's a male hero, and women read ones where it's female and male heroes. And I wonder if having more men read female heroes would actually be a step towards solving this problem somehow. Because then men would make... Well, I don't know if we need men making good female characters or what, but like... I wonder if that would somehow balance it out and you would end up having fewer social justice heroines who just like turn their backs on men completely. If men could appreciate a character who wasn't just like Angelina Jolie.
Yeah. It would be interesting to know what 10-year-old boys now think of Moana.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they...
Yeah, they secretly like him.
Yeah, but that'd be interesting, hey? I don't know. Like, do boys like Moana? Do they watch it?
Yeah.
Or is it not cool?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. But I think you're right that women tend to read... Yeah, that women read... Well, women read a lot more by both men and women authors.
Yeah.
And with male and female heroes and heroines.
Yeah.
Men do tend to read more male
Yeah.
authors and male heroes.
Yeah.
And it could well be that it's that women are just more interested in people in general, so they're not as likely to distinguish or mind whether it's male or female. More books have been written by men.
Yeah.
So it's also something to do with statistically.
You're gonna end up reading.
But I don't know. I don't think that's enough to say that. I don't think that's a good enough reason to say that's why. Well, we have to read more books by men. No, I don't think that's...
There's been enough books written by women.
Yeah. I don't think that's a big enough single reason.
Contributory, though.
Yeah. Because I have to say that, like, and I know a lot of women who say... Who make a point of just reading books by women.
Yeah.
And... You know, I was with a group of women the other day and we were reading poetry and one of the women said, "Oh, isn't it great we all brought poems by women?"
Yeah.
And I had not noticed.
Yeah.
And I also thought, okay, but no, I don't know if it is a big deal, actually. I don't know that it is. And had I been bringing a poem to that group, I probably would have brought something by a man because I know that I actually think there are more male poets that I prefer their work than female. And what I'm trying to get to here is that I have always, I think, felt a tension with this, with feminism, where I haven't ever really thought, I don't know how to put this. I want to read good literature and I want to read the best stuff that's out there. And I'm not going to limit myself in any way by saying either way I'm going to only read books by female writers or books by male writers or anything like that, but I want to read stuff that's going to teach me something and going to be of excellent quality. And so yeah, I've never, I guess it's never been a huge issue for me feeling like I'm underrepresented as a woman in literature or in society. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's... Well, you're not putting anything first other than...
Yeah, other than that, I want to learn and I want to grow and I want to read. I want the best stuff.
Yeah.
And I also have always just had this feeling of like, okay, yes, there's still inequalities. There's still discrimination in many ways against women and against men.
Yeah.
But I think I have it pretty fucking good.
You're not supposed to say that. Yeah.
You know? I do. I think I am...
Compared to David Copperfield.
Yeah, and I think I'm amongst the, you know, the luckiest generation of women that's ever lived.
Yeah.
And I know that there's been a lot of struggle and pain to get there.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't want to devalue that. But, yeah, I think I have it pretty good. And
well, I think by taking full advantage of your situation, I would say that's what the suffragettes and all the feminists who didn't have education and didn't have the right to read books, you know, they would want that, surely. They would want you to read the best that men and women have got to offer, because it's like, then you're going to be better. And you're going to be a stronger woman because of it.
Yeah.
You know, you could read the most chauvinist, you could read American Psycho and strengthen yourself because of it. And I would think that that's a stronger feminist act than burning it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
It's braver.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I can face this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, I can take anything that you were actually right about, I can just take for my own. I'll just steal all your good ideas and leave all your shitty ones. So you're an idiot. But you had some good ideas. Or whatever, you know. I don't see why... Well, maybe this is the Rand shit coming out. Just be selfish, you know. Just take everything you can. Yeah. Yeah. It's slightly different, but same topic. I wonder if there's still... Like, if a boy did like Moana, he would be made fun of. But if a girl liked James Bond, I don't think she'd be made fun of. Might be a few little nods to, like, oh, she's a bit of a tomboy, or, you know, she likes playing with the boys or something like that. And I wonder if that's a big reason that women aren't made fun of if they read books by and about men. Whereas if a man is reading a book by a strong woman, I wonder if society is still, like, lifting an eyebrow and being like,
Why?
what's up? You a pussy or something? Or not pussy, but like, there's just a question mark there, which I don't think there would be with a girl. And I think that's enough to put young, insecure teenage boys way off, being like, no, fuck that, I only read dudes.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I was just thinking about the fact that Michelle Obama's just brought out her biography.
Yeah.
and thinking about all of the people who I know read, what's Barack Obama's book called? Something's from My Father.
Yeah, I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah, Stories from My Father,
Yeah.
or Lessons from My Father, or shit. And I read it, even though I can't remember. I read it, like, my brothers read it, my mum read it, I know loads of, my friends read it, male and female. But I wonder what the percentage of male readers of Michelle Obama's book will be.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Yeah.
And you can't just say, well, that's the problem with men, isn't it?
Yeah.
They don't want to know.
Yeah.
It's not good enough to say that. It's something that comes earlier, and I'm sure there's loads that men could learn by reading that book.
Yeah.
And oh no, I was just going to read the example of that you read. Well, you're reading Ayn Rand, but that you read Tess of the D'Urbervilles.
Yeah.
But obviously, that's by a man.
By a man, yeah. Well, there was a period of time where I was actively reading female authors because it came to light that I was only reading men. I was only reading Hemingway pretty much. And my class was like, you gotta read some women. Your female characters are too masculine. They're not believable. And so I went down a whole route of feminist essays and critical stuff, but also, I'm trying to remember. I read, there's a contemporary, what the hell's Animals?
Oh yeah.
By Double Barrel.
Yeah, Emma
Jane Unsworth.
Yeah. And you started, I don't know if you ever finished Shikasta by Doris Lessing.
Oh, no, I didn't. Yeah. It was interesting, but I don't know, so I wasn't in the right mindset, or...
Yeah. I think, I don't know, there's obviously loads to talk about in this, and we can't go down all the rabbit holes, but I feel like, so there's a number of issues with, like, I think one of the big reasons why I've read more male authors than female authors is that I've wanted to read lots of literature from history and throughout time, and at one time it's true that women weren't being published.
Yeah.
So a lot of the best thinking, well, the only thinking that was being published was by men.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to still read that because I
Yeah.
want to read the best thinking that's out there. But we know that there were still women having great thoughts and writing great things, as proven by George Eliot and the Brontes, and they are also, better than many of the male authors that I've read.
Yeah.
I think we need more strong, excellent female voices now.
Yeah.
Who aren't just saying, shut up, men.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
We need, I love listening to Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson talking, and I love their ideas, and I feel like I'm being made smarter and more powerful by what they're saying, but they do have a masculine way of, and a male way of speaking.
Yeah.
And sometimes that jars and feels difficult, and I almost have to do a bit of translation for myself. Not because what they're saying is like, this doesn't apply to women,
Yeah.
but because it's a way of communicating ideas.
Yeah.
And I would love there to be, a female Joe Rogan or, female Jordan Peterson who could get these ideas across, and with a sort of, in a way that sort of felt more natural to me because I am a woman. And I don't, I can't think easily off the top of my head who I would say that is at the moment.
Do you think Oprah?
No, I don't think so. I do
No.
like, I like Oprah.
She's different, though.
She's different, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, someone who's talking about the really, really difficult stuff and not shying away from stuff, but also not coming from a place of victimhood or, I haven't had a voice. Now here's my, just to be real. And I think there's a lot of women out there at the moment doing good stuff. Like, I like Brene Brown. She's saying some really good stuff. Marilyn Robinson, American author.
What about Lena Dunham?
I don't really follow Lena Dunham. No. I don't really know what she's saying at the moment, to be honest with you. I didn't love Girls, I have to be honest.
No.
It was a bit too self-indulgent for my liking. But I don't know, I haven't seen what she's saying. And I don't, Girls was a long time ago.
What's her name? The Canadian comedian.
Oh, Catherine Ryan.
Catherine Ryan.
Yeah, she's cool.
She's one of the names that comes to mind.
Yeah, she is cool.
Because she's not victim.
No.
And she's not victimizing.
But she's had she openly talks about a lot of shit in her life.
Being a single mom with no dude around. But she's not like, woe is me, or like, fuck all men.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved that bit in her most recent special. What was it, Trouble? Yeah. She talks about being bullied at school and how she was like a weird kid in lots of ways. And I just really liked how she got across her attitude at the time that was like, I do not give a fuck. Like, I ran out of fucks to give in like 3rd grade. Like this sort of like, I don't know. Seems like she's had that attitude of like
world weary.
Yeah, world weary, and like there is more important stuff to deal with.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
So that kind of superficial woe is me stuff kind of rolls off her quite easily, I think. I think she's hilarious and awesome. And in the yoga world, yoga world's an interesting one that obviously not everyone is interested in.
But they should be.
Because that's one that was male dominated for a very long time and now is like incredibly female dominated. Not entirely. There's still a lot of...
It's probably like 70-30 at least.
Yeah. A lot more women just attend classes in general, but I wonder, there are still quite a lot of male teachers. But there's Julie Martin, who's a great yoga teacher and just speaks really nicely about, what it means to be a human as well. And she does come at stuff with a woman's perspective, and a lot of the way she moves and the things she does are with women's bodies in mind. But it's interesting to hear her talk about that and the differences between the way that men and women like to move.
Yeah.
Is there something that we've talked about earlier that you want to come back to at all? Because we were talking at one point about the characters in stories and the hero in stories and it all being aspects of the one.
Yeah.
Which is you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was just sort of wondering if we followed that through enough or whether there was
Went
any...
down the gender or the
We did. We've gone down the gender kind of
the gender hole.
Yeah, because I know I was thinking when you were talking about that one of the books that really made that clear to me, which again isn't an obvious choice by any means for everyone, is The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan.
Yeah.
Because there it's just like incredibly explicit.
Yeah.
Every character is a different characteristic.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got, I can't even remember the names now. It's
Yeah.
a while since I read it, but
like charity. And...
and hope and faith, and then
there's a good one where it's like 2 words, like the hell
is it like there's like ever fearful or something?
Yeah.
So there's like Mr. Ever Fearful.
Yeah.
Yeah, all kinds really, and some of them stay with the traveller whose name is Christian.
Yeah.
Some of them stay with Christian for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Some of them he just passes by. Some of them trick him. Some of them, mean he has to stop his journey and go back on himself.
Yeah. Well, they do what they say on the tin.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's the whole other sort of narrative there, and being on the narrow path and how easy it is to stray, and the different things that you come up against. So it is really just, a huge parable of one person's life.
Yeah.
But that's a really good one.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never read it. It'd be good to.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones that I feel like I kind of know about. Like Dante, it's like I feel like I've read it just because it's so commonplace when you start reading. They're just names that are at the bottom of the pile almost, and it's like, I don't really need to read that. But those are the ones you probably should read, because it's like, I didn't know it was about that, or I didn't know it was so relevant to today. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it took me a hell of a long time to figure that shit out. I'm still figuring out what it really means, but for the longest time, I just enjoyed stories like...
Yeah. And I wonder at what point it's appropriate to tell a person why you read.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever explicitly been told by any one person. Yeah. Maybe until because now I work for the Reader, and Jane Davis, who runs that organisation, feel like, she's said explicitly why we would do this, and it's been so helpful for me. But that's, when I was in mid-20s, someone gave me that message. And I wonder if it could happen earlier. When you're young and you're just still a kid, I think you should just be going off into that world and not really too concerned about why. But if you get to why at university in my undergraduate did we not talk about, like, all right, why do we need this? Why do we read?
We were talking about fucking death of the author and
Orientalism
Marxism and post-colonialism. It's like, well, why the fuck are we reading all this shit?
Yeah.
We just glazed over Aristotle in like a week. It's like, I don't think we said the word the Bible once. Yeah, it's mad. Yeah, you need to act it out first, I feel like. You need to just act it out as a kid. Because then you need to come back to it. Like, you understand it when you come back to the Famous Five. And you're like, oh, that's why I liked it so much. You need all that previous data to go back to with the new, is that what it means? Well, I don't really get it. Does that make sense? And then you go back to the Disney movies and you're like, holy shit, they're all like that. Because that's when it really started making sense to me, is when I figured out that they are all like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, this seems like a kooky theory. And then it's like, no, you're fucking...
There is only one narrative.
Yeah. And it just all locked into place. And it was through... Well, it was through... The one book that really... Finally... Because I think I'd come across it a few times. Joe Campbell really helped. But then a book called Aristotle for Screenwriters, or the Poetics for Screenwriters.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's on the shelf.
Yeah, I've seen it recently.
I can't remember his name.
I'll tell you if I see it.
But it was Aristotle, because it was a lot of just quotes from Aristotle. And it was like, finally made sense to me. But, we're in the 1% of readers, I feel like, who are actually reading about reading. And the process of reading and writing and what words do in our minds and what characters actually mean and why the plot is as needs to be in this way. That's not interesting for a lot of people. They just want to go to watch a movie or read Stephen King or, book on an airplane, and they just want to be taken out of themselves and entertained and feel the way the writer has intended them to feel, which is this sweeping, or not sweep, but like hero's journey, and it needs to work for them to feel entertained and taken out of themselves. It needs to work, and in order to work, the writer either gets lucky and just does it innately, or they do it consciously, and they're like, okay, well, this needs to happen, and this needs to happen, and this needs to happen. And when they get it right, people love it. But they don't need to know why they love it. Like, it just works extremely well. It works better than all the other books you read. Harry Potter is a better kids' adventure story than all the other ones, because she just nailed every single Aristotelian dramatic point. And
it's not to say that if you're not reading about reading or thinking these things about reading, that the books won't still have an impact on your life.
Yeah, they'll change who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a really, really nice advert out there at the moment that I know we've both commented on that sort of like shows that, isn't there? That I think is it an advert for Amazon Prime where they show a person in their like
watching Vikings.
Yeah, in their like humdrum life, and they start watching. Well, yeah, the one with the woman who works in an office is she starts watching Vikings, and she's in her day-to-day life she's getting pushed around quite a lot, and people taking things from her, and she's just being too nice, and she starts watching Vikings, and by like the second episode she's kind of noticing that people are doing this, and by the third episode she's like pushing them away, and by the fourth episode she's like banging on the table screaming like, get your hands off my cup. And that's obviously a very extreme example, but I like that advert because it shows
it says good shows change your life, I think.
Well, it says that good stories
change you.
Yeah. And they do.
Yeah.
And it can be films, and it can be Stephen King, and it can be airport books, but the more complex something is, the richer something is. It's something like the more richness you are then able to find in your own life and your own story.
Yeah.
The more pathways it opens up in your brain. Yeah. Therefore, in your life, in the way you see things.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of that stuff's shit, this is the only good stuff.
Yeah.
It's a matter of, how complex do you want to get? Or, how...
Yeah. Because if it's just cookie cutter... here's a villain for you. Here's a protagonist, Jack Reacher, fucking... probably piss off Jack Reacher fans, but, it's just, the same dude, different name.
Yeah.
Like a Marvel movie. It's like, you know what you're getting, and you get what you want. And there's no or not reevaluation, but, you don't see the world anew when you finish it. And I think the good ones, they reaffirm and then show something new about the world. They sum up the world in such a good way for you to believe it, and then they add cherry on top. So there's a process of like learning and development and maybe confronting previously unimagined things, or like, I hadn't thought that would happen, or I don't know, it's hard to say because it's not so easy as like having a surprising protagonist, you know, like, or having a mermaid marry a mermaid. It's not just changing and surprising with one element.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, you gotta add something. You gotta add your own flavor. And I think we know when they've added their own flavor.
Yeah.
And you remember those stories. And those are the ones that change you, instead of just like, well, yeah, it was good. Can't remember any of it, but whatever. Did its job. Got me through the flight to LA or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that's been on my mind since... How are we doing?
5 minutes.
Yeah.
I gotta teach.
Oh, okay. Should we just call it?
Yeah, I gotta teach in half an hour. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Sorry.
It's okay.